Hello dear students, welcome back to your YouTube channel, and in this video I like to talk on the second prescribed prose for plus 2 Arts, Science and Commerce for the second year students, and this prose is on examination. This prose is by Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill is a great personality and he can be a inspiring figure, an inspirational statesman, because if you study his own life as a student, you will certainly feel inspired, because as a student he had no great life, he had no great session. But in spite of being a very bad student as described by him in his own autobiography, he became a magnetic personality. He became a great statesman. He became the Prime Minister of England for 2 times. He was considered to be the war Prime Minister. He was on the winning side, and he became also the Prime Minister for the second time from 1951 to 55. So he was the Prime Minister of England from 1940 to 1945, then 1951 to 1955. And he received Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953. What is important here that may be quite useful for the students is that he is certainly a source of inspiration. The students can identify themselves with him, that even if they are not good at study, they are not doing well in the examination, still the scope is open, still there are so many opportunities and one can grab it in the later part of the life. This is what Winston Churchill had described in his autobiography. This is what you are going to see in this piece of prose. So on examinations is about that. Winston Churchill in this way is a great personality, a great statesman. Although sometimes when from Indian perspective we think of him, he is not in our good book, because he was not in favor of granting independence so early to Indians. And also he had no good relationship with Gandhi. He was not on good terms with Gandhian philosophy or the Gandhi himself. And as you have studied in the first year in the prose in London -4, that Gandhi didn't meet him, Winston Churchill didn't like to meet Gandhi at the same time, and he described Gandhiji as half-naked fakir. Also, in somewhere he described him as a seditious middle temple layer now posing as a fakir. So you can understand how grudgy, how grumpy he was against Gandhiji. So we are not concerned about that. In fact, if we look into that, obviously we will diminish the stature of this author. So we are not concerned about at all, and that is not in your book also. So rather we have to say Winston Churchill in the magnifying glass. We have to look his positions, look his contributions in a magnifying way or in an exaggerated way. There is no reasons to diminish him. So just we have to focus on what has been there in this piece of prose, what has been there on the prose on examination. So this is quite interesting in that sense that you can identify yourselves with Winston Churchill. Even if you are not doing well in the examinations, you can become the great personality like him. There is no doubt about that. If you have that willpower, if you know how to use your talent to good advantage, then obviously you can become a great person like him, as he could become the Prime Minister of England. At the same time, he was the winner of Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953. You can understand you can understand the importance of Nobel Prize. And again, that is in literature. We have crores of people in India. Still, we are not able to win any Nobel Prize in literature except that of Rabindranath Tagore in 1913. So, after 1913, no Indians have received Nobel Prize in literature so far. So, you can understand how important, how great Winston Churchill was. And also, the greatness lies with him because he was not just an author, he was not just a writer, not just a literature lover. He was also a great statesman. That's why he became the Prime Minister of England for 2 times. And he is considered to be a respectable Prime Minister, respectable personality in the history of England. So, on that note, against that backdrop, and with that achievements in mind, we have to study this prose. We have to study Winston Churchill with regard to the prescribed prose on examination. So, the prose starts with the descriptions of Winston Churchill as a student of 12 years of age, and he regarded examinations as a kind of journey towards inhospitable condition. He didn't like examination. Examinations for him was a scary thing. He was afraid of examinations. And he described it also why he was not in favor of the examination system that was adopted during his time. Why he was scared of that. He was scared of the examinations as described by him because he was not examined in those subjects in which he had the interest or he was good at. Rather, his talent was put to the test with the subjects he was not interested or he was not good at. He was good at and interested in the subjects like writing essays, poetry, and history. And he had no love or the attractions for mathematics and Latin, but quite contrary to the notions of Winston Churchill, the examiners had a different notion. They had great respect for these subjects, for Latin and mathematics. And Winston Churchill had to, as a student, had to face examinations, face questions with these subjects, and the examiners were in the habit of asking the questions in all these subjects so that the students won't be able to answer. Instead of giving the opportunity to the students for answering questions, they were there as if to test his ignorance. And that's why he was afraid of examination. And also he mentioned that the examiners were not interested or were not giving opportunity to demonstrate or display one's knowledge. Rather, they were asking such questions that would expose the ignorance of the student, and that will diminish the confidence. He had described his own experience, the first-hand experience of being in the examination in the second paragraph, and also he described the greatness of the headmaster of that school. The school was Harrow. He had to face the entrance test to get admissions into Harrow. And in the entrance test, as I have already mentioned, that Latin and mathematics were the subjects of great respect for the examiners, and obviously he had to face the examinations in Latin. And when he had to face in Latin, he was not able to have a basic knowledge of that subject. as described when perhaps he had no knowledge of Latin at all. When he saw the question paper, he couldn't write anything except one or I, and in the meantime he put two brackets. He couldn't write anything, and obviously when you have no knowledge about a particular paper question, you can understand how difficult it is to pass that time, and he must have experienced that, and that's why he was using the pen, and there was some blot and smudges found on the paper, and it was very difficult to have 2 hours passed, and how that passed he could understand. That was a kind of sad spectacle. The time passed, and the time to collect paper came, and his paper was collected. It was taken to the table of the headmaster, and the headmaster must have looked into that. However, it was by the broad-minded attitude of the headmaster he was given admission. As described by him, the headmaster was not just an ordinary person that he would just look into what is written on the paper or what is manifested just on the paper. He had the ability to look into, to consider the student's talent, the general intelligence from a broader point of view. And on that perspective, he had given admission into that Harrow. And perhaps that's why Winston Churchill had greatest regard, had greatest respect for Weldon, the headmaster of that school. So, what happened? And in consequence of that decision, in consequence of means as a result of, as a consequence of, in consequence of means as a result of, in consequence means as a result or as a consequence. He got admissions into Harrow, and the placing of name or the roll call was on the basis of the alphabet, or the names were arranged alphabetically, not as per the performance in the entrance test. But he couldn't take advantage of that because his name was Spencer Churchill, and it starts with S. There were just 2 students at the bottom, and unfortunately, much to his misfortune, you may say that they left either because of illness or because of some reasons. So, the last name in the list of the roll call was Winston Churchill, and he has described in detail how he was facing or what sort of embarrassment he was facing or he was experiencing as his name was in the end of the roll call list. He has described here also. Because the system of roll call there was of different types. He has described the roll call systems of another school also. There were 2 reputed schools during that time. One was Harrow and the other was Eton. In Eton, the students are generally, the students were standing in a place in a cluster, and when the roll call was made, they have to answer, they have to respond just lifting their head. But in Harrow, it was a different system of roll calling. They were in the yard, and when their name would be called, they will file past. They will move past through the headmaster. They will move past by headmaster in the yard. And in this way, one by one, the students will move from that area to the specific or specified place. Because the name was in the end, his roll call would be in the last, also in the end. He has described his own experience as a student. If you understand that he was not a good student or he was not a talented student as described by him, but also you should understand that he was not from an ordinary family. He was the son of a great person, Randolph Churchill. He was the son of Randolph Churchill, and Randolph Churchill was once the leader of House of Commons. And Exchequer of and Chancellor of Exchequer, almost like the finance minister. So his father was the leader of House of Commons and Chancellor of Exchequer, and he was a magnetic personality. He was a great minister, you can say. And you can understand the power of minister even in India. And you can understand if someone is son or daughter of a minister, you can understand. So obviously the situation must be like that. And because he was the son of a great person, people from different walks of life sometimes come to that school, to the school of hero, just to have a look at the minister's sons, look at the great person's son, Winston Churchill. They came to that school just to have a look at him, and they were surprised when he was coming in the end, when his name was in the end and he was coming in the end, and they were making some sort of irreverent comment or a kind of humiliating comment. And that was, they must be that how this student is in the last, they must have thought about in a different way. And this comment was heard by Winston Churchill as a student, and it was a kind of embarrassment. And this is what Winston Churchill had described in the first unit. So, if you understand, just give a like. And if you are new to this piece of prose, this channel, just subscribe. Thank you so much.